Oh, okay, everybody. Happy New Year, Jets fans. The season's over. We made it out alive, and here we are, ready to begin what we love to call the offseason, the best time of year for Jets fans. Welcome back to ArmChair GM. My name is Green Bean. Welcome to the Talking Jets Network, and I am graced by the amazing presence of the perpetually incorrect Talking Jets with 𝐻𝐿. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. New year, another opportunity for Jets to do the thing that they are undefeated at, which is winning the offseason. So let's go win the offseason.
The offseason, everybody. Is there anything wrong with it? Why don't we place more value? Look, the NFL has made a push to to make it like a 12-month cycle. So they've done a very good job. I mean, when I was younger, 𝐻𝐿, after the season, there was, Super Bowl, and there'd be a couple weeks of this. Then there was a couple weeks around the draft, and that was it. Went dark. And they've done a good job of making it kind of a 12-month cycle.
Yep.
Well, why don't we place value on who wins the offseason? When are we going to do that? When are we going to make – I want a trophy, damn it. We should have quite a few of those, 𝐻𝐿. Do you think you think I'm barking up the wrong tree here? What do you think?
I think there should be a best off-season award because we're undefeated. Undefeated when it comes to the best off-season award. In the last, 5 years? Just best off-season.
Dude, so it goes back to 1992. The first year that they announced free agency is real. Don't forget, what year were you born again?
95.
So in 1992, when 𝐻𝐿's parents were they were just in a courtship or something. 𝐻𝐿 wasn't around yet. The NFL decided that players aren't just locked in and they get some choice in the matter, and they could decide where their careers are going to go, right? So the first year of free agency, the Jets came out of the gate. Overnight, we signed Leonard Marshall from the New York Giants. Big name at the time. Right next to him, we signed Ronnie Lott, the premier strong safety in the NFL, one of the biggest names. Then we were in the Reggie White sweepstakes. He came here and he said, if the Jets had a quarterback like Boomer Esiason, it would go a long way toward my decision to sign there. And then the next day, on the back of the post, you wanted him, you got him. The Jets signed Boomer Esiason. So it started then, man. We came out of the gate of the whole new era, and we said, the Jets, we might not know how to win many games, but we know about this offseason. We know how to make it exciting, 𝐻𝐿. Yep. So I'd like a trophy. I'd like some rings. I think that's important. I think there's value. Let me ask everybody in the chat. Let us know in the chat. Do you think I'm on to something here or what, man? We should –
I'd like some recognition. You can't be this dominant at the offseason, and just – that's it. Just –
yeah, and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter unless you win some games. That's ridiculous.
Yo, we win some games. We're not the Lions. We don't have an 0-16 record. We win some games.
Yeah, we don't have any 0-16s or 17s for that matter. We can't be made to look ridiculous. So I don't know, man. I think that they should add some sort of stamp of approval on, they do letter grades, but I want a trophy. I think there should be a vote and a trophy. Who improved the team? Who made the most exciting offseason happen? And the Jets, we would be champs.
They should push back the NFL awards till after the draft.
Right.
So in that couple of months, couple of weeks where we've got nothing going on between the draft and minicamp, that's when the awards are. And it gives players an opportunity to campaign for them to win whatever award that they want to win, right? So that Lamar can go on First Take and try to justify him why he should be MVP, and Josh Allen. And the whole point of this is just let's let the offseason play out so that when the NFL awards come out, we have a new NFL award, best offseason. Make it happen.
I like this. This is a good line of thinking for me. It feels right. I think we should start an initiative and really get some wheels behind, underneath it and some momentum. I think it's important, because look, it's valuable to the NFL too, right? Like it's who's generating the most for the other side of the year, for the season, who's providing the most content value to the NFL organization after the season. I think the Jets would be way up top. That's what I think. I think we'd have cheerleaders and dancing girls and trophies and glitter,
confetti, the whole
right.
nine.
Ego, maybe not as important. It could be the other thing, but still something. Anyway, Tigo, the Jets, I'm not sure if you've kept up, but the Jets fired their head coach this year. And we also fired our general manager, interestingly enough. We demoted our offensive coordinator. And then our Hall of Fame quarterback was all but pushed out of town by a lot of the fans and the media, but somehow got 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns. He's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He's like 7th overall, I think, when you collect all the numbers. And we got some choices to make. So we're in this general manager search, this just head coaching search, and we're talking about quarterbacks and everything. So just like overarching, it's the new year. We haven't talked much. We've chatted on the thread and stuff, but officially now, how's the end of the season landing on you? The whole package. How you feeling about going into this offseason?
I think the best way to say it is I kind of just, after we fired Saleh,
yeah,
I kind of realized that the season was over. And I just said, everything that's going to happen from now until week 18, it doesn't matter. Because it was so easy to see that Ulbrich was going to fall apart. It was so easy to see that Joe Douglas had given up on his job and that he had just kind of resigned to the idea, or like relented to the idea that, you know what, I'm going to get fired. Who cares? Because I'm not going to re-sign anyway. And we kind of knew where things were going to go. And so I have been ready for the offseason since like week 9. Because it was just we knew we were going to need a new head coach. We knew Joe Douglas wasn't going to come back. We knew Ulbrich wasn't going to come back. At least there was a little bit of a conversation about maybe Aaron Rodgers coming back. That conversation's done. And so I have been doing basically most of the season is looking at what coordinators are available, who's the hot name, who are GM candidates that we're going to have conversations with, because all of those things were going to be more important. And here we are. And so I'm very excited about this offseason because there are a ton of really, really good names. There are a ton of really, really bad names. And yeah.
So that's the thing. That's why I try not to get you can't help it when you see the writing on the wall, like you're saying, but I try not to dig in too deep because I want to enjoy my off season, right? Like Dom C reached out to me earlier and he said, "Hey, when are we starting the Monday Night Mock?" And I'm like,
"Yo, relax."
Okay. Cause Dom's been ready for like 2 months.
Weeks. Yeah.
He's like, "Come on." So, which I understand, but I'm like, I think it's like I do that in February, like February, March, going into April. But anyway, it's like I want to be able to enjoy it. So let's look real quick. The interviews have begun, everybody, as you guys know. I see lots of good friends in the chat. Dakota's here, Tony's here, Mark from Asbury Park, and Johnny, my good buddy, is here. He don't like any of them. He's done. He don't like it.
Johnny's of the list tired. That you put, that wasn't the best list.
Well, look, I mean, I think that's the top of most Jets fans' hopes. That's the tops. You got more Jets fans wanting Rex than you do wanting, Spagnuolo. Look, I hear you, but Spagnuolo. I mean, who else? Slowick. Who are we talking about here? So look, just let's start with the freshest. So the Jets interviewed Matt Nagy today, and we also put in a request for Steve Spagnuolo. Spags, right? Who is really best known for his defensive coordinator time with the Giants, the Super Bowl, kind of beating the Tom Brady Patriots. That was his defense. But he had 3 years as a head coach and he won 10 games in 3 years. Yeah. So, where conversely, Matt Nagy has a winning record, 4 years as a head coach of the Bears, winning record. He's over 500, which very few Jets coaches are. Only Parcells and Al Groh, everybody else is a fucking loser below 500. Everybody, much as we like them, they're all below 500. So he's above 500 and he's got 2 playoff appearances in 4 years as a head coach. And that's what all with Mitch Trubisky, and he's in the Andy Reid tree and has been with the Chiefs. And so that's a positive too. If we had to choose out of those two, do either one of those guys inspire you? Where do you land there?
I don't want Matt Nagy anywhere near my football team. If it was up to me, I would not let him come to the stadium on away games. That's too close. So I would take Spags at that point.
Tell me why.
Because Matt Nagy got. If you look back at those 4 years of him being a head coach of the Chicago Bears, he was by far and away the worst coach on that staff. Those teams went positive in spite of him, not because of him. Those offenses weren't good. They continuously ranked bottom half of the league, continuously. And he was saved by the fact that in almost all of those years, except for his last year when he got fired, but in almost all of those years, the Chicago Bears defense ranked in the top 10 in every single one of his years, where his offenses inversely ranked at the bottom. He has no business being, in my opinion, legitimately looked at as a head coach, because the side of the ball that he's supposed to manage well, he didn't manage well. And in a draft where you had a quarterback that he could have taken and all of those things, he didn't take the right guy.
He didn't have the choice. It was the GM. It's funny that you said, I want to just talk about one of your points. Like, it's a funny thing, like how you're expressing it is very interesting, because I happen to look at it a little bit differently. Like, when there's a head coach candidate, I don't really like when a Robert Saleh or a Rex Ryan comes here and their defenses are great, but their offenses suck.
I said that wrong. He wasn't there when they drafted Mitch Trubisky. I'm sorry.
He had
the year after. Yeah, right. He got to the team with Mitch Trubisky.
But your other point, it is valid, but I just happen to disagree with it, which is I don't want my head coach's unit that he kind of comes from to be the focal point of the team. I don't want the identity of the team to necessarily be the one thing that we know they know. I want a head coach that the team plays like a unit, wins, right? That maybe he's offense. The offense isn't the best offense in the league. Again, he didn't have the most time. He had Mitch Trubisky, but they managed to win. That to me is more valuable than the fact that his offense with a quarterback that we all now know is hot garbage. I think he's a quality reserve, you could do worse, but overall, as far as your starter, your franchise quarterback, he's not that. So I don't know, man. I want my head coach not to be known for the one thing that we know he can do. And essentially what the Jets have seen is a glorified coordinator. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
I think most head coaches in the NFL are that. There are very, very few head coaches in the NFL that aren't glorified coordinators. Like, I just think that's a reality of the situation. And we've seen that we saw that with Bill Belichick, that a majority of the offensive production that was coming out was Tom Brady, not Bill. So Bill's defenses were dominant and Tom handled the offensive side of the ball. I think we can confidently say that. But of the guys who are like the top NFL coaches in the NFL right now, outside of Andy Reid, and then maybe Harbaugh in Baltimore, because he was a special teams coordinator, so he doesn't really have a side of the ball that he operates. So he operates as a CEO, a real true CEO type head coach. What other coach in the NFL that isn't named Andy Reid or Harbaugh is, and I guess Dan Campbell now, is operating as a true CEO of their football team?
Well, John Harbaugh is, right? Sean McDermott is. You know, I mean,
Is
he's
he?
not.
I don't think
Absolutely.
you can say that.
His offense, dude, that team's offense, man. He lost his whole defense. No, their defenses are good, but dude, they didn't do shit until Josh Allen came in. Then it was Dable and all those guys to focus on the offensive side of the ball, trading for Diggs and all that kind of stuff that they did.
Totally.
But that's a head coach.
No. But Green Bean, I think you're misattributing the success of McDermott, because you can see how much of a fact that he is just a glorified coordinator. Because in Buffalo, let's look at Buffalo specifically. The defense in Buffalo has always been solid since he's been there. Always. Sure. That's where he's operated on the side of the ball.
You don't want him to be garbage.
Of course. No. But what I'm saying is when Dable came in and then they got Josh Allen, we saw 3 years of Dable and Josh Allen, and they were lights out. And then Dable goes to the Giants, and they have to replace Dable. And who do they choose to replace Dable? Ken Dorsey, which was at the time one of the wildest hirings I had ever seen.
Bad hire.
It was just horrible. And that team fell apart. It fell apart. The offense wasn't working, and the defense continued to play well. But we saw from that instance that it didn't work. Then
I wouldn't say
fired Dorsey.
No, but what they
promote Brady, and now the offense starts working again.
They fired him mid-season, though. But that's the thing. Look, you can make mistakes, right? I'm not saying that mistakes, but Sean McDermott, like when you look at the Jets and when you look at glorified coordinators, the other unit is an afterthought. And that's what you see in the for the New York Jets. That's what you see. Like we saw it with Adam Gase. Greg Williams was the head coach of the defense.
Oh, I'm not advocating for that.
Well, right. And so you see with a team like the Jets, when you have a glorified coordinator, in the last 10 years, we've had 7 offensive coordinators. That's the fucking problem. Sean McDermott had a great offensive coordinator, had everything going on. He leaves for a head coach. He made a poor hire, fires him mid-season, and replaces him with Joe Brady. That's a different story because he's a head coach. But you see what I'm saying? That's the difference.
I agree with what you're saying, but the point that I think that ultimately, and I think this is where a lot of Jets fans are, is that ultimately the reason that I think a lot of us have targeted and specifically started looking at you need to bring in an offensive-minded guy is because sometimes not everybody is willing to fire their offensive coordinator mid-season. The New York Jets are a perfect example of that. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a perfect example of that. Matt Canada got 2 years. That was insane. He had no business being employed for that long at all. He was just as baffling as a hire as Ken Dorsey was. And sometimes you just don't have either a defense to sit there and back you up like Nagy had in Chicago or the Jets have had with Saleh. And you don't have time to make that mistake. And that's the issue. Luckily, Joe Brady was the quarterback's coach in Buffalo. But what if Joe Brady wasn't there? And they have to promote somebody else.
I know, but you're getting caught in the weeds. What I'm talking about is the management of the team. Like when you look, there are guys that are glorified coordinators. Like Andy Reid is a great head coach, but he's running the offense, right? So that guy, I wouldn't call him glorified coordinator necessarily, but he is. He's predominantly focusing on the offense. Shanahan can also fall into that category, but there are lots of guys, man. Lots of coaches. Tomlin is a fantastic head coach. Nick Sirianni's defenses are just as important and vital and really kind of a balanced team. They're just as good, if you will, as the offense. It goes from year to year and there's dips and all that. But a head coach, you're looking for a balanced team. That's why the reason that I would like an offensive mind here, it's not so much because I want the guy to come in and run the offense, do all that shit. And it's because we've just gone the other way so many times that you want to switch and have a focus on the offense. Because again, like I said, the Jets have had 7 offensive coordinators in 10 years, 10 offensive coordinators in 16 years. That's fucking ridiculous. And it
I
shows
agree.
that those are glorified coordinators, our coaches, because there's the other side of the ball is an afterthought. And that's my concern. So when I look at these guys coming in, it's vitally important. And when you look at a Matt Nagy, again, I'm not saying he should be the guy, but the hatred that he gets, dude, he's a head coach. You know, he was able to get his team to win while, like, dude, he had very, very little firepower. He had Mitch Trubisky on the offense. The defense was good while he's an offensive mind struggling with his offensive output, and the team is still good enough to get to the playoffs. That is a head coach. Robert Saleh, on the other hand, his defense is top 3 in the league, and he can't figure out how to fucking bench a quarterback that's thrown 6 touchdowns in 9 weeks. So that's the that's what I'm trying to talk about. There are guys that can manage the team, and there are guys that can't. And when you bring a coordinator in and they don't, and you don't have any real idea of whether or not that they can do that, it's a extreme risk. That's why I like guys like Vrabel, like Flores, and some of these other guys. Like Nagy checks some boxes because, again, he's done it, and he's done it successfully.
I think the problem with ultimately the way that I'm going to look at a head coaching candidate is when all things are hitting the fan, how does your side of the ball, the place where you're supposed to be the specialist, the place where you're calling the plays, because let's not excuse the fact that he was calling the plays in Chicago. Chicago operated like the New York Jets at the time. I don't remember who their defensive coordinator was, but their defensive coordinator was the head coach of their defense, and he was the head coach of their offense. I think you're giving him too much credit on what those defenses that were already elite when he got there. He was brought in to revive that offense. The one thing that he was told to do, he couldn't do. He didn't do. And so I think you're saying, I think it's looking back at the record and not remembering the stories and the times that were going on and saying, well, he has a winning record. And it's just like, Rex Ryan took us to back-to-back AFC championship games, and you should not want him to be your head coach. You should not seriously consider him to be a part of this football team. And I think that's where people are kind of getting lost in the weeds. That's the whole part of it. Specifically with Nagy. That's the whole thing. Like, who was their defensive coordinator in those years?
I'm trying to look for it right now. 2018 Bears coach staff. Let's see. Roster. Who the hell were their coaches? Hold on. Trying to see here.
Vic Fangio.
So yeah,
like it's Vic Fangio. They had one of the best defensive coordinators on their thing. They tried to do a Sean McVay, and like that's the whole thing. Of course, the defense operated well. It was Fangio.
Yeah, but look, dude, you're talking about
Fangio to Chuck Pagano,
right? Well, but don't forget, at that point, Fangio had never been a head coach or anything like that before. He was a well-traveled defensive coordinator. One of the duties of a head coach is being able to attract and hire a staff. And we just talked about it with Sean McDermott. You hire somebody who doesn't work, the ability to get rid of them and bring somebody else in is key. That's part of being a head coach, is to be able to identify and say, look, I can't work with this guy. He's not good enough. And having the balls to hold people accountable. That's what we're missing here. The idea that having Vic Fangio on his staff somehow nullifies what he did, I see it the exact opposite.
But he didn't hire Vic Fangio.
I believe he did.
No, Vic was already on the Bears, and then they kept him as the defensive coordinator. He was on the Bears since 2015.
You're right. Okay, yep, he was there.
So again,
for 2 years.
This idea that Nagy is a good head coaching candidate is just people forgetting about the past. He's a whitewashed Eric Bieniemy. That's it. He's a glorified
that's
holder.
Completely off base. Their track records are completely and utterly different. That said,
what do you mean? The only success they've had is under Andy Reid.
That's not true. That's literally not true.
Yeah,
Eric Bieniemy's done nothing. And when he was the offensive coordinator, it was well known that Mahomes was getting developed by Kafka. And Eric Bieniemy was doing nothing when he was
exactly. And Nagy does nothing right now. And he did nothing with the Bears.
You listen, no matter what you're doing, you cannot have a winning record as a head coach if you suck. Okay? Like, granted, doesn't mean you're great, but you can't be a complete waste of space. Eric Bieniemy got a job coaching in college, was fired
immediately. Totally.
Almost immediately. There's a big difference between the two guys. Hold on. 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐞𝐞 checking in. Member of the Talking Jets OnlyFans for 6 months. Thank you for the support, my friend. Says, I heard Green Bean didn't get an interview due to a past film he made under the name Yankee Doodle. I heard that rumor too, because obviously there's no other reason not to at least bring me in, not to at least write a letter.
There's still time. They're still requesting interviews. There's still time.
Maybe they will. Maybe they interview everybody. They're like, dude, just bring that asshole in here. Let's at least talk to him.
Green Bean, what it is now is all the virtual interviews because people are going to the playoffs. They have till Friday to interview people. So I expect to get a call next week, 100%.
There you go.
There it is.
Well, that would be good. But that's one of my that's one of my skeletons, 𝐀𝐮𝐫𝐞𝐞. That's one of my skeletons. So what do you think? We interviewed, we also interviewed, who was the guy not Rex. We interviewed Vrabel. You're right in the same pocket, right? He's all but assured to go to New England. You feel the same?
Yeah. 100%. Once they fired Mayo, like I was always on the, me and Gunny were going back and forth. And I was like, dude, there's no way that New England can get away with doing that. Like you can't handpick him and then fire him after a year and then go to Vrabel. Like the optics of that are just going to be bad. And he's doing it. And they did the most obvious workaround to the Rooney Rule I've ever seen in my entire life.
Terrible.
Like it's Albert Breer did a brilliant 2 minutes on it. If you want it, it's on Twitter. Jake Asman retweeted it. It's brilliant. And I don't want to get into it right now, but yeah, Vrabel will be the head coach of the New England Patriots this time tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's the thing. The Rooney Rule is interesting because the truth is, man, is that if you look at the amount of minority head coaches that were hired prior to the Rooney Rule and after, there's a significant difference in the two periods of time. So it has had an impact.
Yeah, it works.
So it's positive. But that said, teams that are doing what the Pats did right now, which is like
they know who they're
really making a mockery of it, quite frankly. And the fact that it's not really being discussed by like the big networks, it's like, it's for the most part, it's bothersome. And then there's like Woody, every fucking word Woody Johnson says is a Rossini article, so where are you now, Rossini? Why aren't you talking about this?
I think the other thing too is like, even if you know who your candidate is, you can do it the right way. The perfect example of that was the Chargers last year. The Chargers knew from the beginning Harbaugh was their guy, and they still had in-person interviews with 15 different people.
Yeah.
With a ton, and it's just like, yeah, it's beneficial to the team. It's beneficial to the candidates. Like, it's beneficial to everybody to have those conversations. So, like, again, to make a mockery of it, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. So Sam Aiken is checking in. He wants to know, why are we talking about Nagy? Well, because we interviewed him today, Sam.
Yep.
That's why. Like that's the reason why. And we put in an official request for Spagnuolo today.
Yep.
So that's why we started with those guys. Look, I don't really want Matt Nagy either. I'm just saying, when you look at and I guarantee Tigo has a big raging boner for Liam Cohen.
Yep.
Which makes zero sense because
I can talk about all of it.
Bullshit,
I can explain
dude.
it. I can convince
1 year to talk about.
Okay.
That's it.
You know who else had 1 year to talk about and is going to win Coach of the Year this year? Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, great. First of all, he didn't have 1 year to talk about. He had 3 years as an offensive coordinator before getting hired as the head coach. It's
offensive
a
coordinator for the
significant
Rams. You're not calling plays on the Rams under McVay.
That's dude. Again, the point is the same. And when you look at guys, whether they're college players with 1 year of production, they're in college for 3 years and they have one good year, and you trade up to get them and all that shit, you're taking an incredible risk. Liam Cohen has the track record of one season. Yes, Baker Mayfield has improved, but don't forget, he threw almost 30 touchdowns last year. He's got 41, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah,
so it's fine.
And
we have no idea what this guy is. So, like, look, but then my point is this. You could like the guy, but the idea that people want him to be a head coach and you're confident in that is the mark to me of people who want it's the same thing the Jets have done for fucking ever, man. We hire guys that are unproven commodities, rookie head coaches. You're going to hire a guy that has 1 year in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. 1 year with a quarterback and team that was already there and was already performing.
Dave Canales goes to that. He's a perfect example because he had 1 year. And if you look at the backs, I think it's 10 weeks of the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young outperformed like half of the league when there were conversations at the beginning of the year that they might trade him away. Dave Canales is on track to being one of the next, just like Kevin O'Connell, with only 1 year of real, not even real offense. Yeah, 1 year of real offensive coordinator experience when he was with the Redskins. Or you want to keep having the conversation, let's talk about the good LaFleur brother in Matt LaFleur, only had 1 legitimate year of offensive coordinator experience with the Titans. And he goes to Green Bay. Ask how Green Bay thinks about that hire. Like, again, this idea that you can't have a guy who has limited experience as an offensive coordinator and it's not going to work. Mike McDaniel for the Miami Dolphins is operating one of the better offenses in the NFL. And if Tua doesn't get hurt, how maybe they make the playoffs. 1 year of offensive coordinator experience in an offense where he's not calling the plays. This blueprint of offensive-minded guys who are incredibly intelligent.
I can't believe that you're using Canales as some sort of marker of fucking success. I just can't even believe that that's what we're doing right now.
You can
Bryce Young, just take a look at Bryce Young. He had a couple good weeks, dude. He was hot garbage for most of the season.
Absolutely. And what I'm saying is that turnaround is on him. He was being talked about in this
turnaround.
Offseason. Is not 2 games. If you look at it, since week 8, Bryce Young has been one of the most successful quarterbacks in the NFL. Since after his benching and since he came back, all of the stats show that the last 8 weeks of Bryce Young were incredibly efficient for a quarterback that was talked about getting traded away, that the Panthers should lose every game and go for Cam Ward.
This is what we're talking about.
I'm not trying to sit here and say that, Canales is the perfect example. No, I think Kevin O'Connell is a great example. Look at what he was able to do with 1 legitimate year of offensive coordinator experience in 2019, which was the last time he was an offensive coordinator, or Matt LaFleur, who had 1 year of offensive coordinator experience under Vrabel.
So wait, talk to me. I'm going to call Tigo out here for a second, everybody. What do you consider? You're saying that Bryce Young from what week was one of the best quarterbacks in the league?
No, I said he was a top 15. I think it was after when he came back, when he got benched at the beginning of the year, and then he sat out for like a month, and then he came back. And then all of the stats show that he was a very, very efficient quarterback on the back end.
He's had 250 yards twice, more than 250 yards 2 times since he came back. He's had more than 1 touchdown per game 3 times the last 3 weeks. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about 3 weeks. Like, guys, this is the crazy talk that I'm kind of, I can't stomach it anymore. Like, remember Sam Darnold the last couple of weeks, Zach Wilson has a couple of good weeks, and we all have all this crazy. 2 or 3 weeks means very, very little. And but when you're talking about
it's not trends, 2 or 3 weeks. It's not just 2 or 3 weeks. If you look at those games more closely And not
Which
just,
I'm not going to, so please.
I understand. But if you look at those games more closely and you look at the results, they were in every single one of those games. A Carolina team that is devoid of talent. They don't have really much going on that roster. And they were able to come in and they were able to they beat New Orleans, whatever. They beat the Giants, whatever. Go toe-to-toe with Kansas City. Go toe-to-toe with...
Oh, my God. I can't with you anymore. That's what's called a trap game, dude. That's what that is.
But multiple
you're playing
trap
a team
games,
that has
it's a
one win,
3-point
and you're
game
going to the
against
Super Bowl.
Kansas City.
That's what happens. Dude, you can't.
Keep it going. Kansas City,
has
Tampa
done
Bay,
very little.
Philadelphia,
Look.
Arizona. Those are all trap games. They're all
Yeah.
score games, and they all fall short to the trap game because Canales got outcoached.
So wait, they lost to Tampa 48
One
to
game.
14. Yeah.
No,
Then
not
they
the end.
went to-
Look at week 13.
Yeah. So the Arizona Cardinals, okay, 36 to 30. They got blown out 30 to 14 the week before, 22 to 16. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about here. He's thrown more than 2 touchdowns. He's 2 touchdowns or more. The last, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I'm not saying that
9
Bryce Young
weeks.
is
He's
an
thrown
excellent,
more than 2 touchdowns.
I'm not saying that
3
Bryce Young
times.
is an excellent. He got benched.
Yes, you are saying that.
No, I'm saying that he performed better than when he wasn't on before Canales got there. When Canales got there, Bryce Young got benched, right? For Andy Dalton to reset him as he should have.
Right.
Correct. That is the correct assessment to have. And now, and there were conversations for like 6 weeks that they should trade Bryce Young, that he's not going to amount to anything. And now we're looking at a conversation where, hey, maybe Bryce Young, with a few more years of Canales, with another year and some roster building, maybe he can be an NFL quarterback. That matters.
Maybe.
No, of course, but he wasn't a maybe before Canales got there. It's the same conversation, and this, I'm not just trying to hone in on just Canales. The point is that he's looking like he's going to be a positive offensive hire. We need more time to see it. But here's the real conversation is Kevin O'Connell, with 1 year of offensive coordinator experience, doesn't get credit for what he's doing with Sam Darnold.
3 years of offensive coordinator experience.
Are we really going to count being an offensive coordinator for Sean McVay? Yeah, no, I'm not going to. Matt LaFleur's been an offensive coordinator for 2 years with Sean McVay. Are we counting that?
Of course you are. He's the offensive coordinator. Even if you're not doing the play calling. Dude, Tigo, it's factual shit, dude. He was an offensive coordinator for 3 years and a quarterback's coach before that for 5. Wait, let me look at what Liam Cohen. Let me look at Liam Cohen's resume is about as fucking skeleton-like as anything I've ever seen. Let me see. I got to look at it because I'm not looking at it. Whoops.
Like, you want another guy who only had 1 year of offensive coordinator experience and then got hired? Kevin Stefanski. Weren't we talking about if Kevin Stefanski get fired, we should immediately go after him? He has 1 year of offensive coordinator experience. It was 2019 with the Minnesota Vikings. We were ready to jump through the moon. This idea that you can't.
Who's ready to jump through the moon for him?
Remember, there was a I can look at it in the group chat. I'll pull it up. Where we
no,
were talking about
I said he
fire
be
him.
brought in for an interview, no doubt.
Absolutely.
But nobody's jumping through the fucking moon. The guy's done nothing. Now, you could say there's reasons for it and everything, but they've done nothing since he's been there. Just about nothing. 2 years ago, they kind of made some lemonade out of lemons. So you give them credit for that. But dude, again, we're looking at guys that are basically they're doing 2 picks from nothing in the NFL. And we're making it out. You know what I want as a fucking head coach? I want somebody who's done something. Won some championships. That's what I want.
Who's that guy?
Winning record as a head or has been a head coach and has proven they can win as a head coach.
Who's that guy?
Tired. 1 year. 1 year.
Green Bean, I'm with you. Who's that guy? Who's the guy?
You're talking about Liam Cohen. You know what he was? In the last 4 years, this is what this guy has done. 4 years. He was an assistant quarterback coach. He was an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach for Kentucky for 1 year. He came back in. He was an offensive coordinator for 1 year, and then he's a coach. That's what we're looking at. So good. We'll move on from Liam Cohen. My whole point is this. That's why the new and you cannot neglect to include that the New York Jets are not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The New York Jets are not the Arizona Cardinals, are not some other market. It's the Jets.
I agree.
Cannot do the same success story, the same formula that's working, in Houston isn't necessarily going to work here. You have to factor that in. And I am so tired of GMs and coaches and whoever else that think that they're going to go into the season and you're not going to have extra depth at positions. You're going to go in and believe all the chips are going to fall in the right spot for you. Ain't happening here. This is a worst case contingency plan environment. That's what you need here. So grabbing a one-time head coach, a one-time offensive coordinator in the NFL head coach, to me, seems silly. But Dante is up. Hold on. Dante is up. Sorry, you made your points. I made. We're good. Dante, I understand the pushback with the Rooney Rule, but I believe that, and that's what I'm saying. It is net good. I think it's time, though. It's been in place for a little while. I think it's time to look at it and see what's been working and what hasn't. Because this is when they just bring in the obligatory minority coach. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows, and it's bullshit. Yeah. Quite frankly, I think it's bullshit. The one thing I take solace in, the New York Jets are not in question. First of all, we hired a minority coach before the Rooney Rule. So there's that. And we've hired quite a few. You know what I mean? I think we had 3, or was it 4 or is it 3? The Herm, Bowles, Saleh. I guess it's 3, right? So we're not in question. So when the Jets are bringing in guys or whatever, you know what I mean? I think we've been active participants in the evolution of this subject. But like the Patriots, what the Patriots just did, and you saw it, Tigo, they released a
singular graphic
with both of them on it. Like, they were both here today.
Here's the even deeper part. Here's the even deeper part of how this goes to even new levels of craphousery by the New England Patriots. The rule, like the letter of the law, is that you need to do in-person interviews with 2 minority candidates. And the rule is that if there is any coach that is currently employed by an NFL team, you can't speak to them in person, regardless of if they're in the playoffs or not. And it was try to balance everything out. So what did they do? They went out and found the 2 minority guys who currently aren't employed so that they could bring them in to interview them for their head coaching spot. And here's the greatest part of it all. Not only are neither one of those guys going to get looks to be a head coach, I would be hard pressed to see if either one of those guys gets a look at a coordinator job this offseason.
Which one? Who? I'm sorry.
Both Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich.
Yeah. Well, Leftwich is interesting because I thought really highly of him.
I did too.
But Bowles fired him and has done better since he's gone. So it's
Canales and Cohen back to back, much better hires.
So it's interesting, Dante. Wild Wave checking in. If you come from the McVay tree, I'm all in.
I'm not like that.
But I think that's one of the trees that you feel better about for sure.
Totally.
I mean, like it's like the olden days, the Parcells tree, which is Belichick, Crennel, Weiss, Carthon, Coughlin, all those guys, lots and lots of rings and winning seasons in that batch. So then you got like the Shanahan tree, and Kyle Shanahan's father, the Mike Shanahan tree, which is really the McVay. The McVay tree is really it backs up to Shanahan.
No, yeah. Shanahan shouldn't get credit. Papa Shanahan should get credit for all of the Shanahan.
All those guys. I mean, they're all over the NFL.
Yeah. All of them.
But I'm with you, Wild Wave, and I'm not not a hundo like Tigo's saying, but I think everybody's individual. What do you think about Robert Saleh? You think Robert Saleh is going to go back to the Niners as the DC?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Or you think he'll take that Jags job if he's offered?
I don't think he's going to get offered the job. I think they're bringing him in, and I think that the Jets falling apart was really a positive for his, hey, look at how bad the Jets were after he left. But I think the right move for him is to go back to San Francisco.
I think it's a better move. I always like when head coaches fail, that they take a breath and they go back to doing what they do and they can reflect. That's the positive. When they leave a head coaching job and go right into a head coaching job, more times than not, I think it's a mistake. Not Andy Reid. Andy Reid was taking him to the dude. He just couldn't win the ring. But they were perpetually good. Made it to numerous NFC Championship games. I mean,
the firing of Andy
he was fired for doing what our favorite guy, the max we've ever done. It's fucking right. The AFC Championship game. So
he got fired. His firing is something that is going to be studied for years. Because I think they're probably happy with, well,
they won a ring too.
Super Bowl, right? With
Peterson.
Doug and
right.
I think they're pretty happy with Sirianni right now and all those things.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna go down as what? Probably like the second best offensive mind of all time.
Oh yeah, he's in the conversation.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like he's in the conversation for the GOAT. I can't.
Yeah, but
I would call him the GOAT offensively.
But your logic,
I haven't seen.
But your logic before about like Fangio and all, like, could you just say, well, if he didn't have Mahomes, what? There's an argument. Way that
what he did in Philly was
with what was his name again? Not McCown. McCown, right? No.
I don't remember.
Hold on. What was the guy's name? God damn it.
See his face.
Me too. I see it. Not McCown.
Josh. Not Uncle Josh.
No.
Somebody
Eagles,
in the chat.
QB
McNabb. I saw his face. I could see him.
Thank you.
I was like, I couldn't get it. Oh, McNabb.
Thank you. All right. So Sodak checking in. Says, frankly, I think you're both nuts. There you go. Thank you. Nagy is garbage and Cohen is unproven. Glenn is a DC with no experience. Think we have to go Flores. Well, Brady falls right into the mix.
I was about to say.
Yeah. Now, that's why Sodak, if you've been listening to me for a little bit, I bring up other names and I dissect. I'm not a Matt Nagy guy, but I do like Nagy more than some of these guys that people present, like these one-year coaches. I get it. There is some success. I remember we're the Jets, which is why I should fucking be the GM. I factor in the Jets curse. I factor in the Jets kind of that presidential wearing out of your face and your hair turning gray.
Going wrong. But that's
you got to factor that in. But that's why I'm Flores.
But that's why I like Cohen, because he lost wide receiver 2 this year. He lost.
Oh my God!
Running back 1. He lost a bunch of guys on the offensive line, and he was able to adapt, and they're in the playoffs. So I like Cohen.
Yeah, I like him too. I'm just saying.
Not my number one.
Always not my number one. And that's like, I see comments in there about we're interviewing Josh McCown, or we've requested to anyway, for head coach. I don't think he's really a viable head coach candidate. Although Andy Reid, don't forget, guys, Andy Reid was never an offensive coordinator. He was I believe he was a quarterback coach.
Neither was Zach Taylor. Another guy.
And neither was Herm Edwards. And so, like, it happens. But I just don't think. I think that they're bringing him in here to see where he is with offensive philosophy. If they want to, like, for just as an example, if they do hire Flores, do they like him as the OC?
I think that's why they're bringing him in, is to get info on Flores, not necessarily because I think that's why they're going to have a conversation with him. Is like, hey, what would you do with this team? What do you think of Flores? I think they're trying to do their due diligence with Flores, and they rightfully should. And I think that the results of that should come back with a very, very astounding thanks, but nah.
Yeah, well, I think too. You know what? We were talking about it last night. I forget if it was Matt or Ryan that brought it up, but they talked about they also could be kind of trying to get some intel on Mike McCarthy too.
Of course,
seeing where that
makes a ton of sense too.
Yeah.
Like, I think the 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿 and McCown interviews are both, we need to figure out if all of the things that are being said about Flores is true.
What things?
All of this.
Patrick, that he's a.
I wasn't even going to bring up Fitzpatrick. When you have
By the way, I want a dictator. That everything Fitzpatrick said to me, I'm like, good.
I haven't even seen the Fitzpatrick thing, to be honest. So I don't know what he's talking. I know that it's out there. I haven't seen it. I was talking more about all the stuff that came out, like the post Tua stuff, like when the Miami stuff, obviously
the 5 years ago, that stuff.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Well, if Fitzpatrick is talking about him, it's 5 years ago too.
Yeah, but I'm referencing. I didn't know if you were referencing new stuff.
No, I don't think there's any. I didn't know about the Fitzpatrick stuff until an hour before the show started, and I was like, I should go listen to that, and I didn't have time.
Well, here's the thing. Like I like to say all the time, we in today's society, we like to remember something someone said or did 5-10 years ago and hold it against them. I am the exact opposite. If you held my 20 years ago against me, nobody in the chat, nor would you even associate with me. I was a complete criminal piece of shit. I wasn't allowed in my own family's homes 20 years ago. So, you know what I mean? It's called learning from mistakes, which is my whole idea. I want to hire a head coach who's proven he can coach, failed, and made those mistakes for somebody else's fucking organization. That's what I want. I want him to come here with a whole head full of, I know what I did wrong. That's what I want. Not a guy going, I never even heard of clock management before. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the whole difference. We love to watch guys stumble and bumble their first time ever doing something and throw shit at them and tell them why they suck after, 5 games of year 2. So it's, I don't know, man. Experience trumps all. Flores got it. He 9-7, 10-6, fired for calling the owner out for being a piece of shit. Who was fined by the NFL? What?
But he also, yes, he called out the owner, but like part of him getting fired was because he was also a piece of shit. I think you're ignoring the fact that he was, like, when he left Miami, they were jumping for joy that he was gone.
That's not true. I had numerous Miami fans call me and say, "What the fuck are they?"
Players.
The players?
The players were glad that he was leaving.
But find me those articles, dude. I don't remember what you're talking about. People bring this up like it. I have no idea what anybody's talking about. Somebody could show me something. I'll look at it. I have seen nothing of the sort. Fitzpatrick talking about that he was a totalitarian and everything. Look, again, and he made his mistakes. I'm sure there's stuff that he regrets and all that. Just like Saleh now. You don't think if Saleh goes and he's a defensive coordinator for a couple years and takes a look back and goes, yeah, I should have benched that fucking guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to learn his next head coaching job. He's going to do things probably somewhat differently. And that's the whole thing. That's my whole point. Sam Aiken agrees with Tigo. He says the light is turned on for Young. Maybe. I mean, who wouldn't like to see that, right? It's like, but at the same time, a handful of games does not a career make. It's a positive, and it definitely, I think your point about him being all but in the garbage can, it's a good point. But again,
I wasn't trying to say that he's a golden standard. No, the guys I was trying to point, and we got stuck on Canales, was like Zach Taylor and Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur. Those were the guys I wanted to focus on because they're more akin of the one and done as an OC.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a good point. I want Dante says, I want this generation's Parcells. Experience good, no first timers. That's me too. And if it has to be a first timer, I would prefer offense, but I'll shoot straight. I don't love the offensive batch. I don't. It's like Joe Brady's okay, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know what he is as a head coach. I don't know. It scares me. Now, Ben Johnson to me seems like a little bit more secure of an offensive prowess. Like, I don't know. I feel like having Josh Allen as your focal point to your offense is a pretty good benefit to have.
I think
the guy before him wasn't doing such a good job, so there's that.
I think the biggest problem you're going to run into with Joe Brady and this is my biggest concern with Joe Brady, is the 2 quarterbacks that he's had control of were Josh Allen, and why can't I think of his name in Cincinnati? Joe Burrow. Those were the 2, quarterbacks that he really has a claim to. And then what was it? Like
Sam
a couple
Darnold
of months
in Carolina.
Yeah. And like a couple of months of Sam Darnold in Carolina. And so it's just
not a couple of months. It was a year. It was 2 years. It was a year and a half. Let's say.
I thought he got fired. I thought he was
did. Second season. He got fired.
Yeah. Either way, it's just like that's where that's my concern with Joe Brady is I think he's done an incredible job with Josh Allen, but how hard of a job is it to do really good with Josh Allen? And then I remember that Ken Dorsey also had Josh Allen and he almost ran the Bills into the ground.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, it's not a cure-all. It helps.
No, Joe Brady to me is the biggest enigma of I don't know what he's going to be as a
he scares
when
me
he leaves. Yeah, he scares me too. I would, because he's offensive minded and I like what he's done in there, and I think it would hurt the Bills. I would do it, but like it's just that scares me.
You know what I want? I want Brian Flores to come bring Josh McCown as his offensive coordinator, and then go get 𝐒𝐮𝐫𝐞𝐞 as a defensive coordinator. That's what I like. Oh man, everybody he hates Miami. He wants to walk on, and then you got 𝐒𝐮𝐫𝐞𝐞 all pissed off about the Pats.
And then just Uncle Josh is there for a good time. He's like, "What's up?"
He's like, "Hey man, I've been all over the place. Flores. This is fine." But yeah, anyway, our buddy Arbiv checking in says, how would the scenario play out if the new head coach and GM want A-Rod back, but A-Rod doesn't prefer the choices and wants to leave? Well, I mean, I don't know. I think, it's going to be interesting because I think, honestly, a team like the Niners, right? They got Brock Purdy, but they had a real bad, a down year and all that shit. And Brock Purdy, I think he's really good. I liked him even coming out, and I talked about it now partially because I was looking at Iowa for a lot of other reasons, and I was like, this fucking kid's good. Primarily the tight ends. I think it was Kolar and Laporta. I was like really zeroed in on.
I wanted Laporta in the worst way.
Yeah, so did I. But I was like, you know what? This Purdy guy, he's a little bit more. I don't know why he's kind of an afterthought. But anyway, seeing Aaron Rodgers, like, if there's any. That's where he wanted to go. It's where he's from, essentially. He expected to be drafted by them. They drafted Alex Smith instead that year. Going back and finishing his career with Deebo Samuel and the crew and Kittle and everybody, that might not be the worst scenario for him. He can go out and take them to a Super Bowl, and I think they would entertain it. Going back with Saleh as the defensive coordinator, the whole thing. But I don't know how it'll, look, I think we're going to learn a lot in the next month or so about what's going on. Honestly, I think unless he retires, which then he could just go sign with anybody he wants, right? Like Brett Favre did. I think any staff is probably going to say they want him. That's what I think. They're going to say, dude, come back. You took 3,900 yards last year. It was a crazy year. Once Tyron Smith went down, things got a little bit better. He was garbage, dude. It's crazy to think, right? How bad Tyron Smith is. But what do you think, Tigo? You got any thoughts on that? Like, how do you see if the head coach and everybody wants him, but he doesn't want to, he wants to go somewhere else? I mean, you think, what do we do? Try to trade him, or nobody's going to trade for him?
No, I think the question comes down to, does he want to play? Because he can't leave. He can't retire and go to another team. We still own his rights. It's just like, if he wants to play next year and he doesn't like the coaching staff, sucks to suck. I guess you're done. I guess your career's over. I guess that's the last year that you had. So I think that the reality is that this offseason is going to kind of be a humbling experience for him, because it's going to be like he doesn't have a way out. No one's going to trade for him. And let's be real, of the 31 of the other NFL teams, I don't think anyone's going to take him. Name who's going to take Aaron Rodgers at 41.
I think the Niners. That's what I think. I think the Niners are a perfect spot. So anyway, it's a tough one. Jake, let me just tell you something. You just jumped in. You missed the whole thing. The Jets interviewed Nagy today. That's why we're talking about him, you butthole. That's why. I wouldn't be bringing him up out of fucking thin air. We interviewed him today for head coach of the New York Jets. That's why we're talking about him. And we also put out a request for Spagnuolo, the ever-inspiring for head coach, Spagnoli's.
I feel bad for Spags because he's always in the conversation of he should get a head coaching job, and he never does.
Because he's such a badass as a DC, he really is.
And my biggest thing now is like, you get to a certain point where it's like, what does the rest of the NFL know that I don't? There's a skeleton in the closet there. There's something there.
With who? Spags?
With Spags that we don't know about, because he's been, like you just said, he's been such a badass as a defensive coordinator for so freaking long, and no one gives him a look. No one gives him a shot. And there's a dead hooker somewhere. Like there's something.
Well, I think the skeleton is he had 3 years with the Rams and won 10 games in 3 years. That's a tough one to overcome, no matter what you do. That's bad.
How long ago was that?
I mean, it's a while. I mean, but still, let me see.
But like, you never get any redemption.
I know. No, it's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, people are talking about Flores getting his redemption and all of those things, and it's just like, I get it.
Flores, dude, he had remember, he had a skeleton team.
I was in middle school when that happened.
But Flores had no team.
No, not Flores, Spags. I was saying,
right.
People are talking about Flores getting his redemption and all. I was in middle school. He was the head coach of they were still in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's 2009. Well, right, because when we hired
Rex, 20 years.
When we hired Rex, Spagnuolo was hired by the Rams that year. That's right.
It's been almost 20 years. 15, I'm rounding up. I get it. But like still.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time. And he's done a lot since then. So it's interesting.
A lot of really good.
But you know what? He was the interim head coach of the Giants in 2017 and didn't do too good there either. So maybe that's possible too. Sam checking in says, how critical is it to find a GM that can hit in the later part of the draft? What is the playoff window for the next regime? I think it's vital. The interesting thing is that for a long time, the Jets couldn't even hit on their first round picks. That was the problem. Like the draft was all but useless. Like McCagnon hit on almost nobody. He ended up hitting on Quinnen his last year, but his entire drafts were garbage. So when the idea is like, you got to at least hit on your first. They have to at least be contributors, right?
Yep.
Solid, continuous contributors, if not, Pro Bowl, whatever. But you have to be able to hit second to fifth round. You got to be able to hit on those. They have to be able to be around. If not even just solid depth, that if somebody goes down, they come in for 2 games and they play adequately. Like you need that. And if you can't, if you're fucking looking around, spending money on free agency every year, trying to fill those holes, which is what we've been doing before Joe Douglas, say what you want, it's changed. We hit on our firsts, and he's been hitting on our seconds. Yep. So it's like, I don't know. And he's done a fair to above average job in the mids, with Sherwood and Carter and some others. You know what I mean?
I think you have to be able to get day 1 and day 2 is going to be a bulk of your team. First, second, and third rounds.
Yeah,
you gotta hit regularly. And I'm not talking you can't have your odd bust. It happens. But first, second, and third round picks are as good as gold in my eyes. They gotta hit. And I'm not saying that they need to be superstars, but they need to be role players. Your first, second, and third round picks need to be guys that are getting second contracts. They need to be guys that are getting second contracts. Now, anything that you get past that, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, day 3 guys, those are lottery tickets. But you gotta hit on them.
But you gotta be
hit
able
on
to hit
them
on
every once in a while.
Especially when you're talking about defensive line, offensive line, like you got to be able to grab those guys 5th, 6th round. You got to be able to hit on some of them. 50%.
It's one of the biggest reasons that I was kind of on that board of like, I think it's time to let Joe Douglas go, and why when we first started talking about the draft, I was like, I don't know if I can go another offensive line in the first round. Like, you need to be able to hit in the 4th round on a guy. You gotta, every other team in the NFL does. You gotta be able to do it. And I think
we did with Sherwood, and Michael Carter was a 5th. You could say Ashton Davis is kind of a hit. He's a guy. Joe Douglas, interesting enough, does better with his undrafted free agents than he does with his late round picks, for some reason, but who knows? I want to get to this guy real quick. We were talking about him earlier. Mr. Dom C's in the house. He's all fucked up. He's like, why are we still talking head coaches and GM? Can we talk the draft? Damn it. He's been licking his chops since week 5. Any minute, Dom.
Dom,
Any
we
minute,
can't do
buddy.
it because we don't know who's making the picks.
That's the problem, Dom. He
Are we
don't care.
playing
He
a
wants
3-4 or a 4-3, my guy?
He
I
wants
hope we
to
play a
talk
4-3,
about.
but-
He don't care. He wants to talk about ratings.
He wants to
He
talk
don't
about
care where
Cam
they
Ward.
go. He wants to talk about the ratings, man. That's where he wants. He wants to evaluate traits. Dude,
He wants
hey,
to talk about how
all things in
explosive
due
this
time.
7th round cornerback is.
Yeah, all things in due time. All right, I'm going to end this poll, see what the chat said, and we're going to get out of here. We're running a little bit long, but that's okay. Who's your guy for head coach? Again, we only have 4 slots, so I picked, pretty much the top of the list for Jets fans this past week, what we've been talking about. No Nagy on there, Jake, you butthole. So Flores takes the cake with 46%, Aaron Glenn with 23%, Rex Ryan coming in with 20%, and Joe Brady holding up the rear.
20% of people want Rex Ryan.
Dude, it's it's memory lane, dude.
Somebody
Lane.
make it make sense. It's like going back to your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, it's the sour milk theory. But look, then there's this, right? There's like, the idea that, the last couple years, the last year with Tannenbaum was rough, and then 2 years with Idzik, and he was able to get 8-8 out of a really terrible team, devoid of talent. I mean, there's an argument, I guess, but then you add Buffalo to it.
That's the Buffalo should have been the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, but there's been enough time.
The other thing is no one's interviewing him. Do you
Right.
really want to go after the guy that has no interest? No one goes after the girl who's hanging out in the corner by herself. Everybody's going after the girl that's getting all the attention and all the things.
Yeah,
and everybody wants to dance with her. That's what you want. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, that's like
it's
I
not
used to
right.
have I used to have a joke, Tigo, when I was a comedian. I would say, I'm a bar rat. So I would at the time, and I would say, I hang out at the bar, and you're hanging out, you're eyeballing everybody, and then around 1:50 in the morning, there's a mad rush for all the girls. Most of the good looking ones went home, and then there's the ugly ones there. And now everybody wants them, and there's a mad rush for them. I say, I walk in at 8:00. I walk up to the ugliest girl in the place. I'm like, you and me, my place. Let's get out of here. I know what this is going to do. I know where it's going to end up. Let's just get out of here. So it worked. JV Free. Let me just say, buddy, other option sucks. Yeah, I hate other. Yeah. You want to know why? Because it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't give us any info.
It's zero info. I always hated other because other to me is like, you can't commit. Make a decision, man. If people don't like it, they don't like it. But shit or get off the pot. Make a decision, man. Others like, I'll say this. I'm not calling you this, but I'll say it this way. It's like the pussy way out to me.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. So I disagree, JV Free. I disagree. With that all said, I will tell you guys in the relatively near future, Dom and I will be starting up the Monday night mocks, the 10 o'clock mock, which starts at 10 p.m. on Monday nights. Very fun. It'll be Dom and Ryan on this network on Monday nights from, before I think 8 to 9 or 8 to 10. And then we jump on from 10 to usually 11:30 midnight, and we rock out all the mock drafting. It's the best mock draft show on YouTube, in my opinion. So especially Jets related. So we look forward to doing that. But anyway, Tigo, you're the man. I'm happy to be back with you. I'm glad we made it through this painful season, buddy. And now we get to jump into Dom Seville and talk prospects. And look, we get to talk head coaches and GMs and everything else. So we got some exciting stuff. The Jets are never boring, and it's nice to see you, buddy. What you got anything coming up you want to let anybody know about or anything like that?
Not really. We're obviously doing the content. We're going to do this stuff about what's going on with the head coaching search and everything that's going on that front, obviously. But it's just hard until we have more concrete things, until we start doing in-person interviews, and until things start narrowing down. It's very hard to kind of know what the direction of this football team is. And that's the thing. It's just kind of a little lost, because at this point I'd have full mock off seasons, and it's just I can't do that because I don't know what defensive scheme we're going to be running, let alone, what's going to happen, how we're going to get coached, any of that.
So let me just say to JV Free, I merely said it's my preference. That's how I look at it. I don't care. So what if other wins? Other. So there's
but then he puts up. But the worst part of it,
choices, we don't know who they are.
The worst part of it is then the two people that he said to put on the list instead are two people that aren't going to get hired as head coaches.
Who are they? Who did he?
Gruden.
Gruden,
you put
right?
Gruden and then Carroll.
Yeah, neither
Carroll.
one are
The only team that's interested in Carroll right now is Chicago.
Well, let me tell you this: Pete Carroll was the third oldest coach in NFL history 4 years ago. So that's what I want to tell you. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm just pointing that out. I'm just saying. These third NFL history, not active in NFL history 4 years ago. So, or maybe it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. So anyway, we got one more super chat from Jake. Looking forward to the Mocs highlight of every Jet season. LOL. Yeah. I know, Jake. And you can bust my balls ad nauseum, but just know I come back. So I'm going to say shit too. I can't let it go. With that all said, you're the man, Jake, other than Tigo, of course. But hey, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. This was Armchair GM on the Talking Jets Network. Please don't forget to hit the like button on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It is greatly appreciated. We will see you. Where is it? We will see you next time.